Conservative candidate for the 2021 federal election. Thank you to the Sycamoose Chamber for providing this opportunity to talk to you about our plan to secure the future. Over the past 6 years, I've heard from residents from across this great riding with issues as varied as the people and the countryside of this beautiful part of the country. Issues such as affordability, housing, healthcare. How can young families afford a home? These are issues we will tackle and find solutions to through our Secure Canada's Future plan. We will address affordability by reducing the inflation that's been caused by the out-of-control spending. We will address healthcare by making mental health an important part of moving forward as we move out of this pandemic. Healthcare is health, and we recognize that, and we'll move forward with that. As we go through this process, I hope you'll take a time to take a look at our plan at conservative.ca/plan. In that, there is something, I believe, for everyone. We have just a few days left before the election. I hope you'll take a look at our plan and give it a serious consideration, and I ask for your vote on September 20th. Thank you.
With so many Canadians receiving CRB and employers struggling to keep staff, how will your party help small business recover from the impacts of the pandemic by getting Canadians back to work?
This is a great question, and certainly one that I've been pressed with since even before this election started. We've seen how businesses were struggling to find employees. We've seen people struggling with increasing debt levels. Our Canada Recovery Plan, through our jobs plan, we will replace or rebuild those 1 million jobs that have been lost through the pandemic, through business investment tax credits, through rehiring plans where businesses will receive a 25% and sometimes up to 50% tax credit on net new hires, so that businesses hiring back employees can do that fiscally responsibly. We will invest in our Rebuilding Main Street plan so that businesses can feel confident in investing in their future and their employees' future. As a former small business owner, it was often a bigger concern for me worrying about my employees, and I know many employers out there think the same thing. They're more concerned about their employees to make sure that they can go home comfortably to their families and afford their homes. We also want to look after our seniors to make sure that they are secure in their homes. Many parts of our plan will address all of this, and I look forward to explaining more of it as we go forward. Thank you.
The housing market is out of control and rental housing is almost non-existent. This affects the workforce. No housing, no workforce, no business. What measures will your party put in place to create a more realistic housing market for first-time home buyers in our riding? Do you have plans to assist with providing affordable renting housing projects for young families and seniors?
I couldn't agree more that the housing situation has become a crisis. We've seen that increasing demand has outpaced availability. Inventory is at very low levels. Our plan will be to build 1 million new homes over the next 3 years to address this inventory shortage. We will ban foreign investment buyers from purchasing and displacing local resident investors or buyers that want to try and move into a new home. Young families need to feel secure and need to know that they can afford and work towards a down payment. Inflation is a problem, and it's eating into people's paychecks. People are struggling getting by from day to day, let alone being able to save up for that down payment. We will also introduced 7 to 10 year mortgage programs to help mortgage lenders and borrowers to be able to have a longer outlook on their mortgages. All of these pieces will come together as we build these 1 million new homes, and then work with communities, with the provinces, to ensure that we can all work together to build those lower income housing developments as well. I've been happy to provide letters of support for other communities around the riding, such as Lumbee that is in the process of building affordable seniors housing. I look forward to working with communities like Sicamous and every other one across this great riding to make sure that we can provide the type of housing that each of the communities want, in conjunction with working with the provinces, with our Indigenous people. That is another area that we've pledged to follow through on, is for Indigenous, by Indigenous housing, so that our Indigenous communities can house their own people in homes, not just houses. Everyone deserves a comfortable home. Thank you.
The vaccine passport has caused much upheaval in our province. Many all-candidate forums have been cancelled due to the conflict over this program and the threat of violence. Although it's a provincial initiative, it is affecting all BCers, and with more provinces implementing the passport, it will soon be an issue for our entire country. What do you believe needs to happen to ease the conflict?
Well, I think we need to look at the cause of the conflict initially to find the solution to it. And the biggest cause, I believe, is the changing information or uncertain information that came out from the federal government, the Liberal government, right from the start of this pandemic. There were conflicting reports of how effective certain measures were for protection, whether masks were useful or not, whether international travel was an issue or not. We've seen that information change. So part of the solution is providing clear and concise information so that individuals can make their own personal health choices from that information provided. And I believe that health choices are personal choices, and everyone has the right to determine what they are going to do with their own health protection. I also believe that the vaccines are the quickest way out of this pandemic for us to recover our businesses and our economies. And I encourage everyone that is able to go out and get vaccinated. As far as the vaccine passports, those are provincial jurisdiction. And I encourage anyone with concerns over that to contact the provincial health minister or the premier and express your concerns through that. What's taken place with some of our in front of some of our hospitals should not be happening. Take it to the decision makers responsible. Thank you.
We must not forget the horrors the Indigenous population endured in the residential schools, as we are all witness to the pain and suffering inflicted on these people and the hundreds of burial sites identified throughout the country. What does your party plan to do to help the healing process?
Well, thank you. And it was heart-wrenching when the confirmation of those 215 children at the Kamloops Residential School came out. I immediately reached out to the First Nations in the area to offer support in any way I could when it was appropriate or when they were comfortable to speak about it. I also followed up with a letter to the Prime Minister asking him and urging him and his government to follow through with recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. That Truth and Reconciliation Commission came as a result of the study of the residential school system in 2007. The commission was established in 2008. The recommendations came out in 2015. We're now 6 years beyond that, and this government has yet to fully implement all of the recommendations from that Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I've continuously reached out to the First Nations in this riding of North Okanagan and Shuswap to understand what it is that they need in their communities, to hear their priorities. And then I've taken those priorities to Ottawa on their behalf and advocated for the resources and the support that they need. I'm going to continue doing that if I'm fortunate enough to continue to serve this great riding. Thank you.
If elected, will your government amend the Federal Species at Risk Act to include socioeconomic impacts and risk assessments, including a robust consultation period with the local business community?
Thank you. It's an interesting question, and I should maybe point out that in 2010, I sat in on a provincial species at risk task force and realized how complex this issue is. There are different ranges of protection on Crown land versus private land. I think the Species at Risk Act needs to be looked at to see how it's impacting private landowners, backcountry recreation users. We've seen that with the mountain caribou issue. I've held forums on that in the area here and had high participation from people in the area that were concerned about how the Species at Risk Act may affect their access to the backcountry. And I believe the Species at Risk Act also needs to be looked at through an Indigenous cultural standpoint as well. Those species, whether it's mountain caribou or wild salmon, are all such an important component of our First Nations people and every Canadian, that protecting those species that are at risk or close to that certainly needs a closer look. Thank you.
We're hearing that people are not planning to vote because they've lost confidence in the government. How do you plan to boost confidence in politics in our riding?
Well, thank you, and I really appreciate the chance to answer this question. One of the key components in our Secure Canada plan is accountability. We've seen how the current Prime Minister has been found in breach of ethics violations multiple times. We've seen the Finance Minister the same way. They have blocked investigation into other breaches of conflict of interest or improprieties, the We Charity scandal. They interfered with the Minister of Justice in her investigation of the SNC-Lavalin issue. We will return accountability to government through a stronger Conflict of Interest Act, more powers to the Commissioner for implementing fines and penalties for breaches. We will bring back transparency and accountability to government, and I look forward to being part of that when we form a Conservative government.